and welcome back to another lesson where today we are going to be talking about one of the most important aspects of music, in my honest opinion, and it is rhythm. So music itself is really just sound organized into two different categories: pitch, which is how high and how low something is, and rhythm, which is how fast and how slow something is. So usually, if people are playing all the wrong notes, but you hear the right rhythms, you'll assume what they're playing, right? So I'm gonna try to play the wrong note. I'm gonna do that again. That rhythm was taken from a specific song that may not be easy to recognize, but you might hear the rhythm and you might be like, oh, okay, I think I understand what it is. Now, if the notes were slightly closer to being correct, you can guess that song. I'm gonna do it one more time. I played more wrong notes at the end. I played a few more right notes that time. Playing the few right notes probably got you closer to guessing what song that was. And that song was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. The rhythms give it away more than the notes, in my opinion. I could have been playing. All the wrong notes, and you might have been cringing on the inside, but bobbing your head to the fact that I'm playing the right rhythms and understanding what I'm attempting to play. Rhythm is arguably more important than anything. Rhythm is the pace of what you play. Really, more so tempo is, but rhythm in general is the pace of what you play. And I often like to say music is very synonymous to a language. Music is a language. Music is like speaking through your instrument. The instrument is an extension of your voice. And the rhythm at which you speak is what can get people listening to you or can get people confused by what you're doing. Case in point, if I was talking very slowly, you might scroll past this video because I'm just speaking a little too slow for comfort. Or if I was talking very fast, you might think that I'm talking too fast and you might need to have to go back a couple times to understand what I'm trying to say because I might be speaking a little bit too fast for your understanding. But I like to keep a good pace in between both of those things. So rhythm essentially encompasses the speed and the complexity of how you approach what you are playing. I'm not talking about pitch-wise. I'm not talking about how high or how low it is, but I'm talking about rhythm. Everybody should know about rhythm. And rhythm is very intrinsic, in my opinion. Like, I think everybody, unless this is just my culture, living in the South, everybody has had that teacher who's like, class, pay attention, and then they start clapping and the class is supposed to respond. Then the class. They didn't know what they were doing. They were just mimicking that rhythm. But it's so intrinsic that they were able to do it. They didn't have to learn how to do it. Well, in music, we have symbols that teach us about this. And these are all the symbols down low. You have this symbol right here, which is what we call a whole note. It's red at the moment. This symbol right here, which is what we call a half note. It is not red, but now it is. That is a half note. This symbol right here, which is what we call a quarter note, now it is red. And this symbol right here, which is what we call an eighth note. Let's talk about it, right? And I'm gonna fill in all the empty gaps to make it make sense. Usually, whenever you are listening to music, and I'm gonna say usually loosely because there are different styles of music, most times you can organize the rhythms into 4 beats. Most times, everything that you are doing is 4 counts long. The song example that I was giving you earlier was Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All of that is organized into 4 beats. I could just say 4 over and over and over again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, if you see a whole note, it lasts for 4 counts. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Half notes are half of that. 2 counts. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Quarter notes are on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. And eighth notes double that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. That's essentially all the 4 rhythm counts that we are going to discuss today. But it's easier to recognize them when you are looking at the symbols. It is good to recognize them by sound too and to repeat the rhythms, but the whole premise of what we have been learning is more so about the music visuals, learning how to read. I told you music is synonymous to a language, so just like any language, you have to learn how to identify it by hearing it, speak it by repeating it on your instrument, read it by looking at the symbols and the charts and the music staff and the tablature and all the things that will allow you to understand what you're looking at. And then write it yourself, just in case you need to write notes. If there's any song if there's ever a song that you might learn that you need to write out. So when we are looking at this, we will have our rhythms that play. Now, the speed at which we count to 4, or at which we apply these rhythms, the 4 counts, the 2 counts, the 1 counts, and the half a count, comes at a rate that we call beats per minute, BPM for short. And that rate is determined by a term that we call tempo, T-E-M-P-O, tempo. The Google definition of tempo, that's not the definition, is measured in beats per minute, the speed or the pace of a given composition. But usually, you can only figure out tempos by using a device, an old-timey device called a metronome. And it's not completely old-timey. The screen isn't showing it. Let me shift the screen over a little bit. Bam. Shifted the screen over. Here is the metronome. I see there's a slight glare, so let me lower the light. Hopefully that helps a little bit. Right now, this metronome is reading 100 BPM. BPM is in small letters. I'm sorry if you're not able to see it on your screen. 100 BPM, beats per minute. That means every 60 seconds or every minute, this will click 100 times. Now, if you speed the numbers up, if you go to a higher number, that means every 60 seconds, it'll click 140 times. Or lower, every 60 seconds, this will click 68 times. So the lower the number, the slower the pace. The higher the number, the quicker the pace. As we are looking at these rhythms right here, we're going to look at it at 100 beats per minute as the tempo grid shows right there. Let me show the full thing, that way you have the visual. All right, let's try these rhythms if you're ready. And it's very simple. Right now, these are all sound. You will not have silence. If this was played, it would be sustained. But for today's settings, I'm just going to have a clap sound, so it may not be that good. Here we go. Here's the tempo. Second line. Third line, and fourth line. Back from the top, you have 4 counts, 2 counts, 1 count, and half a count. And that's it. Now there's rhythmic equivalents to sound. All of these are called notes. Whole note, half note, quarter notes, and eighth notes. But there is an equivalent to these things where they are silence. You have whole rests. Rest means silence in music. You have whole rests, half rest, quarter rest, and eighth rest. In this platform, you will not be able to see whole rest and half rest, but you can see a quarter rest. If I were to get rid of this note, that symbol right there that I'm going to circle is the symbol for a rest. So that means during that part, we will not make any sound. I'm going to show a couple more rests and add in a few more. That way we can mix and mingle everything. I believe y'all can get whole notes relatively easy. So now we have quarter, rest, half, rest, quarter, rest, quarter, eighth note, eighth note, eighth note, eighth note. Playing it from the top, and I want you to join in with the rhythms. I'm gonna clap it this time instead of playing it. Hopefully you can stay along with me. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2. Ready, you got quarter, rest, half, rest, quarter, rest, quarter, eighth note, eighth note, eighth note, eighth note. That's it. Just like that, you're understanding rhythms. Now we can make this a lot more complicated, right? Clearing the entire board. Randomize. This is the type of note that I have not talked about yet, so I'm just gonna replace that with an eighth note. Replace this with a half note and a quarter. And shuffle. Let's do it from the top. Good luck. 1, 2, ready, you got rest, eighth note, rest, quarter, eighth note, quarter, eighth note, rest, rest, half note, rest, half, rest. Let's do it again, but slow it down. Here we go. 1, 1, half note, 1, half note. Ready, from top. Rest, eighth note, rest, quarter, eighth note, quarter, eighth note, rest, rest, half note, rest, half, rest. Simple enough, right? Simple enough. So far you have learned about rhythm counts. I'm gonna put it at the top again. Whole note, half note, which lasts 2 counts. So if I had another half note, 2 counts, 2 counts, this whole vertical, this whole horizontal, this whole row is 4 counts in total. Why my camera not on? Oh, my camera is on. What's good? Hendrix, Sockwell Hendrix. I did see your question. I told you I saw your question. I don't know if you were reading my comments in the chat. I said, give me 2 minutes. My 2 minutes is done. I'm here. How do you find the tab of a song? There's a few websites that you can use to your advantage to find tabs of songs. Main websites that I like to use, number 1, YouTube. Like, YouTube is probably the best place to find the tabs of songs because it will allow you to see people play along with it, and you might be able to find, if it's a good YouTuber, you might be able to find a video lesson as well. So YouTube is great. If not YouTube, there's a few websites, right? So one of my favorite websites that I used to use all the time when I was growing up, reading tabs heavily, was ultimateguitar.com. And it's really ultimate/guitar. I just type in ultimate guitar, ultimate-guitar. I just type in ultimate guitar on YouTube. And then I see a site that looks like this. I know you're not able to see the full screen, but it literally has probably millions of songs. I don't know how many songs it has on here. But when you are on a website like this, any song that you want to search up, just type it in and you'll be able to find it. So let's say I wanted to look up, I don't know, let's name a song. Just the Two of Us. Bam. I typed in Just the Two of Us, and on this side of the screen, let me move it over, that way you can see it. Let me turn it off studio mode, make my life easier. On this side of the screen, in the white text, you will see where it says Pro or Chords or Tab, and it might have another option. Oh, Bass, Ukulele, and Official. Those are all the options that you will usually see. If you're looking for tabs, just make sure the one that you find says tab on it, right? That way you're not looking at unnecessary things. If you look at the chord version, it will only show you chords, and it won't really, like, another thing about this website, before I bash it, because I used to love this website growing up, all of these tabs were written by people. You know what I'm saying? And not everybody knows what they're playing. They think they know what they're playing, but they just write stuff down. So it's not always the correct thing. It's not always the correct part of the song. It's not always the correct chords. It's not always the correct tabs. But sometimes you do stumble across gems, which is why I like the fact that they have like a rating score, and you can see how many people rated it. So if we're looking at the chord version, over 6,000 people rated this version. I would probably assume that this version is correct. And it says the tuning is in standard tuning. Let me shift it back over for you because I know you're not able to see the full YouTube TV screen. It says it's in standard tuning right there, E-A-D-G-B-E, but it says the capo is on the first fret. So you would need a device like a capo in order to play these chords. It says C major 7, right? Wrong side. It says C major 7. But that's not right unless I have my capo on the first fret, which means my C major 7 will really be a C sharp major 7. But before I even get into all of that, you were trying to figure out where you could find tabs. These are chords. On this website, if we were to look at a tab version, right? Here's the tabs, and there's a star. I don't know why there's a star on it. Oh, okay. With these tabs, you see a lot of dashes. I'm not a fan of those dashes. Those dashes are like very code. Like it looks like you're learning from code rather than learning from sheet music. So it is a good website, but it's pretty. It doesn't give you the best tabs, if you will. But looking at it, it does have the tabs right there. So it says 3, 5, 4, 5. But it still says the capo's on the first fret, so everything is shifted over. 2, 4, 2, 2. 2, 4, 2, 4. 7, 9, 7, 8. Interesting. Yeah, it's a tab website. Now this one's not that good in my opinion. But there are other platforms, right? You could really go on Google. You could be as simple as just going on Google and typing in guitar tabs. And I'm just gonna do that just for simplicity's sake to show you how simple it is to research and do your own research. Usually whenever I go on Google and I type in guitar tabs, the first website that pops up is Ultimate Guitar. Best website, most popular website. But I wouldn't say it's the best. It is the most popular website. Songster is a great one though, because this one doesn't give you those dashes, but instead it will show you the sheet music as if it was really on sheet music. It shows you rhythms with rests, and it also has a play button that allows you to hear it. So it's like, why not use it to your advantage, right? Now, this platform, I've only seen a few people use it. I've never used it personally myself, because by the time that I started seeing people use platforms like this, I was far from really searching tabs. I was really using my ear to learn songs. And that's a skill within itself, but we can talk about that as well. Going back to Google, the main ones that I like, Ultimate Guitar Tabs, Songster. Songster is better than Ultimate Guitar Tabs in my opinion. There was a platform, and I also said Google. YouTube. YouTube is great. But there was a platform that I used to use all the time that now all I do is teach from. So if you're ever in need of guitar tabs and you want to learn guitar tabs or want to learn songs reading via guitar tabs, I don't mind writing guitar tabs. I write guitar tabs for my students all the time. Everything that my students learn, I've written myself as far as the students in my guitar class, because I'm a high school guitar teacher. So here are a few songs that I wrote out for my students, like The Cure by Lullaby. This is just one part, but if I showed all three parts, and let me put this back at 100. That's that. If I showed all three parts, you can look at it via tabs, you can look at it via notes, you can have the stems underneath. This platform is great. Unfortunately, this platform does not allow for you to share sheet music publicly. You can only share music privately. So if I created some tabs, I can give you the link to my tabs that I wrote. But I cannot post public tabs on my own account and share them. Similar to how you could do on Songster, or similar to how you could do on Ultimate Guitar. You can't really just search tabs on this platform. You used to be able to do that, but they nipped that in the bud on the 4th of July. But right now, all you see is a bunch of notes. Those aren't really tabs, but on the side, they do have a settings button. This side right here. On the side, they do have a settings button where they have a lot of different settings. You can control the volume, you can control the instrument, you can look at the appearance. And if I click on the advanced aspect of the appearance, I can see notes or I can see tabs. I'm just gonna hide the notes. If I like the tabs, but it's not showing me enough rhythmic information, I can press on stems, and I can also see the rhythm included in my tabs, which is something that Ultimate Guitar Tabs doesn't show. You'll just see numbers, and you will have to use those numbers and your ear to figure out what is the rhythm for each particular measure. You can even show the rhythm counts if you have the Educator account. I don't know if this is just like everybody has the rhythm counts. Pitch names, if you needed pitch names as well, but that usually shows at the top of the actual notes. That way you can see what pitches are being used. And a whole bunch of other stuff. Like it is really good. You can expand the repeats, hide the empty staffs, show the title of the song if you wanted the title at the top. It just has a whole bunch of advanced settings that sometimes I show, sometimes I hide. If you wanted to read it from top to bottom, if I was only showing one guitar part, because right now it's a lot of guitar parts being visible. One guitar part looking like a page. But if I wanted to read it left to right, I could put it on horizontal, and now it will scroll from left to right. So it has a lot of features on this platform. Now, the biggest reason why I'm an advocate of this platform and Songster is because in order to be a qualified musician, in my honest opinion, there are 4 aspects that you need to accomplish. First aspect, learning how to identify, meaning hearing something and repeating it with your ears. Like you need to play by ear. Do not think that you can learn music and read tabs all the time or expect people to tell you where to put your fingers. You have to use your ears every now and again. So if somebody's playing something, you have to use your ears to figure out what key they're in. You have to use your ears to figure out the rhythm that they're playing. If you're playing the exact same thing as them, you have to use your ears to figure out if you're in tune or if you're playing the wrong note. If you're playing at the exact same time as them, using your ears is big. But also speaking the language of music, meaning playing your instrument, because your instrument is an extension of your voice. So don't think you can learn guitar without playing it. You have to play it. You have to speak it. Also, reading, which is something that you already said because you're talking about reading tablature, but also learn how to read from the music staff as well whenever you make that time. Learn how to read chord charts, learn how to read scale charts. That way when you see something, you're not just completely clueless to it. And the last thing, the 4th aspect of learning any instrument, but more specifically guitar, you have to learn how to write. Don't just learn songs and that be the end of it. If you're learning songs, write your own tabs. There's literal manuscript books and tab books that you could buy to write your own sheet music. That way you could use that to your advantage. Now, whenever you are learning songs, you don't have to always rely on the internet or your cell phone to have that knowledge, to have the know-how in order to play that song. You could just use your own notes, like if you have it written down on a sheet of paper. Or you could use a platform like this, which Songster allows you to do, and which what's it called? SoundSlice allows you to do in order to write your own music. Writing your music will show you how knowledgeable you are when it comes to rhythms, and it'll just show you all the different elements of that goes into writing music that you may not know. And whenever there's something that you don't know, you can use that to your advantage to figure out what you should be learning. So I think that's great. How do you find the tabs of a song was your question. So that was that. I don't know what that means, comp. Salam Nederson. But yeah, so hopefully I'm not saying anything crazily. Anyway, though, I would like to shift gears and talk about a specific topic today. And if y'all have any questions, make sure you leave them in the comment section. From those questions, I will definitely be getting back to you and answering them at the end of my recording. But when you see it say recording in progress, that means that I'm not actually going to be staring at the chat. I may not be talking to you directly, but it is something that you can learn from. So still pay attention, of course. But today's topic that we are going to be talking about is a topic that was slightly asked a few office hours ago, and it was how do you learn or how do you really practice and understand scales and chords, scales and triads. So I kind of briefly talked about it, and I kind of mentioned it yesterday when it came to understanding rhythms as well. But I'm going to talk about it a little bit more today on my trusty dusty whiteboard. So bam. Let me hide this for a quick second. And I'm about to hit that recording button. So sorry if there's anybody watching that has questions. I'll get to your questions at the end of this. Make sure you stick around for the end of your question. You good? Okay, cool. understand. This AC is on full blast.
Yes, that's another thing. And me, I don't do good in cold. It makes me sleepy.
Understandable. Recording in progress. Okay. Today we are going to be talking about the concept of learning your scales and your chords. How do you learn scales? How do you learn chords on the guitar? This thing can look real confusing. It's not as easier to see as a linear piano, but it is very easy to comprehend whenever we start studying this. Like, this is one of the easiest instruments to play scales and chords on, in my opinion, because it's very movable, unlike any other instrument. Once you learn something in one place, you can take it and apply it anywhere. That's one of my favorite things about this instrument. So we're going to talk a little bit further about that and talk about how you can learn your scales and chords. Now, there are 4 ways to learn your scales and chords. 4 ways, right? 4 different approaches. But I put these approaches into what's most important to what's least important. So the first approach that you should do in order to learn your scales and chords is, number 1, learn it by shape. Learn your scales by shapes. What do I mean by that? Well, I'll give you a brief example. There is a concept called the 3-2 method on the guitar. The 3-2 method of the guitar. So that means we are playing 3 notes on one string, 2 notes on the next, 3 notes on one string, and then 2 notes on the next, and then 3 notes, and then 2 notes. And it's going to be the same thing over and over again, right? So let's say I'm playing this note, the 3rd fret of the E string. I can play the 3rd fret, and all of these are going to be skipping a fret. 3rd fret, 5th fret, 7th fret. Next shape is going to be the 5th fret and 7th fret of the A string. 3, 5, 7, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7, 5, 7. 3 notes on one string, 2 notes on the next. 3, 5, 7 of the E string, 5, 7 of the A string. And then if I kept it going, 3 notes on the D string, starting from 5, 5, 7, 9. And 7 and 9 were my last 2 numbers. 5, 7, 9. I take those 2 numbers up, 7, 9. And I just repeated the exact same scale. And I can keep it going. I play that scale all the time. Now, that shape is easy to recognize, easy to memorize, and easy to apply. However, because it's a shape, it is also movable. So I didn't have to start from G, the 3rd fret of E. I could have started from A, the 5th fret of E. 3 notes, 2 notes, 3 notes, 2 notes, 3 notes. So instead of 3, 5, 7, now if I'm starting from A, which is the 5th fret, I'm playing 5, 7, 9. And the shape is the shape. All you do is apply that shape over and over and over and over and over again. Figure out how does it apply to the A string, figure out how does it apply to the D string, figure out how does it apply to the G string, and then you just keep moving the guitar. Keep moving the shapes over and over again, and it's easy. All you do is keep going from there. I like to think that the guitar is easy, but that is just the first aspect to learning your scales and your chords. Now, when it comes to chord shapes, there are only 5 chord shapes that matter, and those are your caged chords. So actually, let me pull up a few resources instead of talking strictly from a whiteboard. I'm gonna pull up a few resources that I've drawn out to make this make sense. And I write all of my resources on Canva. Oh, Canva, there we go. We are looking for scale charts and cage chords. Scale charts and chord charts, those are gonna be the main things that we were talking about. I'm gonna have one over here. Oh, it didn't stick. One on one side of the screen and one on the other side of the screen. Are both screens visible? Not too much. But I don't care if this takes up the full YouTube screen. I'm just gonna zoom out. How about that? Cool. This is what scale charts might look like. I know this is very colorful. I'm just gonna show you this. This is what a scale chart might look like. Whole lot of numbers, whole lot of dots all over the fretboard. Very overwhelming at sometimes. And this is what chord charts might look like. These are a bunch of different chord charts, but if you were to take just this one, you're looking at one chord, which is the G chord. This right here in the center. Don't worry about E over there, don't worry about that over there. Just this right here. This is a chord chart. So these shapes are also movable. Let's actually look at E minor shape, because that is one of the most easily recognizable movable shapes. E minor looks like that. Now, if I were to play this, just like how I was showing you the 3-2 method can be movable, here is the E minor chord. If I were to use everything except my index and middle finger and just use my ring and pinky finger, I could take my index finger and apply it across the entire fretboard, all of the strings. We call that a bar. If I wasn't playing open strings, I would be barring those strings. But if I take everything up a fret, now instead of playing open strings, second fret, open, and I move everything up one fret. Now I'm on the first fret, third fret, 1, 1, 1. That is a bar chord, and it is movable. So at first I was playing an E chord, but now I'm taking this exact shape and I'm taking it up. Now I'm playing an F chord, and more specifically, that was E minor, now I'm playing F minor. Now G minor, or F sharp minor, G minor, G sharp minor, and A minor. And you might be used to A minor being here, but it's the same chord, or at least it has a similar sound. Now, when we first started learning about scales and chords, I said the first way to learn it is to learn it by number 1, shapes. So hopefully you have learned a few shapes, and if not, these resources will be linked in the description where you can learn a bunch of different scale shapes and you can learn a bunch of different chord shapes. However, just know them as shapes alone. Recognize them for the shape that they are, and then take it and run with it when it is time to move them around. But after you learn those shapes, learn them by sound. So I want you to hear a scale and recognize what sound that is. Hear a chord and recognize what chord that is. There are multiple types of chords, multiple types of triads, multiple types of extended chords. There's multiple types of scales. Like you have your major scale, minor, and chromatic. Don't even get me started on the pentatonic. And the minor pentatonic. So all of those are different scale types and different chord types. I said you have your major chord, which is major, and minor. And then there's different types of triads and extended chords and all the things. So the more that you learn all of those different types, you can use it to your advantage to recognize them by sound, not just shape. Sure, apply the shape, learn the chord shape so that you can better learn your songs. But then get used to hearing a chord and recognizing that chord off rip. A lot of my students like to play this chord. They may not be able to name that chord, but they're like, oh, I know that chord, that's using this song, that's using this song, that's using this song. They recognize it by the sound. So the next step that my students need to work on is recognizing it by sound and applying the name to it. This chord is a major 7, and there's so many different types of 7 chords. Major, dominance, minor, half diminished, fully diminished. So all of those chords can be used, and all of them are used quite often in a lot of different songs and a lot of different reasons. So you have to recognize them by sound. That way when you hear it in a song, you gravitate to it with your hand shapes. You already know where to go to for your hand shapes. You just have to figure out what fret do you start on. That way you can just apply that chord shape to the fret that you already know, or the fret that you found. After learning the sound, after learning the shape, after learning the sound, the next step is to learn it by numbers. What do I mean by numbers? Numbers can get very, very overwhelming and very confusing. So let's look at it from the whiteboard perspective. One of the easiest scales that you will ever learn, easiest scale that you will ever learn, and most important scale that you will ever learn is C major scale. Why is it the easiest major scale? Because it is all natural notes. Easiest scale that you will ever learn because it's all natural notes. What do I mean by natural? I mean that there's no sharps or flats on the notes. Sharps look like this. You don't see any of these symbols, and flats look like this. You don't see any of these symbols. Now, if you don't know what those symbols are, those are symbols that help you raise and lower notes. So if you were looking at the chromatic scale, which is all 12 notes of music, you will see all of the notes. C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, and then B, and then you're back at the top, back to C. And those are all of the notes of music. Very easy to understand because it just keeps repeating over and over and over and over again. Now, when you are looking at scales and learning your scales and your chords, I said you need to learn it by number. What do I mean by number? I mean you need to know it by scale degree, and you need to know it by interval. Those are the main things that matter when it comes to learning your scales and your chords. Scale degrees and intervals. What are scale degrees? Scale degrees are the numbered position of notes within a scale. So very easy to recognize. If we were looking at our major scale, we'll just call this first note number 1. That is our first note. And C is repeated twice, so instead of writing the last number, we might as well just call it number 1 every single time. D, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you're back at the top. It is the numbered position of the notes within a scale. Very easy to comprehend. And then whenever you are playing chords, usually they say whenever you're playing chords, you're playing the first note, the third note, and the fifth. But usually we like to call that the 1, the 3, and the 5. Now when they say 1, 3, 5, they're talking about scale degrees. Now, scale degrees, slightly easy to understand, but it's better if you also understood your scale degrees by sound and by shape, because there's a lot of different shapes that you can play the same scale. But if you look at your scale degrees by sound, then it's good. If I'm in the key of C, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 5, 1, 6, 1, 7, 1, 1. It's very good to recognize things by sound, because if you had a melody, you could recognize that. Like if I was singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, it's good to recognize that by scale degree. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 1, 5, 5, 6, 6, 5. Now I don't have to stay in the key of C. Let's say I'm working with a vocalist and we're like, oh, that key is a little bit too high for me. Can we change that? And I go to this key instead. This is my new 1. 1. And then I take that scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I apply the exact same scale degrees to that key. 1, 1, 5, 5, 6, 6, 5. Now at this point, I'm not relying on specific keys and specific notes to help me learn. But now I can take anything that I learned, apply the concept of scale degrees, and apply the concept of shapes, and play it all over the guitar. It makes life a little bit easier for us. After that, you should also learn it by interval. So the interval is the distance between notes. And that mostly applies when you are looking at 2 notes at the same time. So one of the easiest intervals to start with is the smallest intervals ever. If it's 2 notes that are right next to each other, like C to C sharp, we will call that a half step. These two notes right next to each other are considered a half step because they're right next to each other. Now, if we had two notes that were not right next to each other, but they skipped a note, like C to D, skips C sharp, we will call that a whole step because it skips C sharp. Two halves will make a whole. C to C sharp is a half step, C sharp to D is a half step. Put those two together, C to D, you got a whole step. It skips a note. So learning the intervals, especially like the formulas and the intervals, will make your life a little bit easier. And there is a formula which consists of all the intervals that make up the major scale. Same thing for your minor scale, same thing for your pentatonic scale, same thing for your chromatic scales, all the different types of scales. It's good to learn them by number. And by the numbers, again, just to make sure that you're sticking with me, the numbers I'm referring to are the scale degrees, which is just the number position, but also the intervals. So if we were looking at the intervals associated with the major scale, C major scale, you have a whole step, got me, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Now I just told you all of that, but if you want to fact check me, let's talk about it. And I'm gonna hide these numbers while I do it. The first interval is C to D. C skips C sharp and goes to D. So we call that a whole step. Second is D to E. D skips D sharp and goes to E. That is a whole step. E to F, right next to each other, so it's a half step. F skips F sharp, goes to G, whole step. G skips G sharp, goes to A, whole step. A skips A sharp, which I did not write A. I just wrote the symbol. A skips A sharp and goes to B, so that is a whole step. And then we end off with B to C, which is a half step before it repeats all over again. Those are the numbered positions of the notes within a scale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And also their formula via interval, not 8, 1. Their formula via interval. So when you have all of this comprehended, and it may not be the easiest thing to understand, but the beautiful thing about YouTube and these videos is you can keep rewatching them over and over again. The moment that you have these comprehended, you can manipulate them to your advantage. So let's say we're looking at a major scale, which is exactly what we just played. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. But we have to make the major scale minor. They might say you need to lower the third, the 6th, and the 7th. So instead of playing E, you're playing D sharp. 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, 1. And applying that to all of your scales and all of your chords. At that point, you have not only learned the scales via shape, you've not only learned the scale via sound, hearing the difference between your major and minor scales, but then you also understand why it's major and why it's minor. And now you can manipulate that to your advantage at any given moment, whenever it's time to do so. So let's say you're playing with a group and you're playing the chord progression 1, 5, 6, 4. So that's the 1, 5, 6 to the 4. To make it more plain, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 4. But I'm gonna do both octaves. 1, 5, 6, 4. You can easily recognize it whenever they're ready to manipulate it. So let's say this is our last time doing the chord progression. 5, 6, 4, and then they say go back to 5, go to 4, go to 5, go to flat 6, flat 6, flat 7, back at 1. You can have that knowledge to your advantage because you know where 6 was, so you can lower it. You know where 7 was. I mean, this is 7. So when they say lower the 7th or flatten the 7th, you already know where it is via shape, and you can understand it via sound. That way, when you hear this, you're like, that's not 6, that's not 7, that's not 1, that's flat 6, flat 7, 1. So learning it by shape matters so much because now you know where to put your fingers. and you can move them up and down. But learning it by sound matters too, because now you can recognize when something does not add up to what you're used to hearing. And now you can identify it whenever it's time to identify it. But then the biggest aspect of it all, learning it by numbers so you understand why those things apply. And above all, outside of sound, shape, and number, we have number 4, the notes themselves. Now, when I say this is above all, this applies to every other instrument way more than it applies to our instrument. Playing guitar, you can cheat the system. If you look at these firsts, sound and shape, you don't have to worry about the actual notes that you're playing. Now, it is good to learn the notes, but you don't actually have to worry about the notes that you're playing. Now, the reason why I say it is good to learn the notes is because if they say we're in the key of C, you want to at least figure out where C is. And then they say, yeah, we're in the key of C major. You're like, okay, I know C major chord. I know C major scale. Even if you do not know the notes of C major scale are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, you don't have to know those notes if you know the shape. Even for minor, you don't have to know this is C, D, E flat. Earlier I said it was D sharp. D sharp and E flat is the same sound, different notes. It's a different note because it depends on the context in which you're giving it. So if the context that we are giving it applies, how do I put it? If the context that we're giving it is in the key of C, then you would not use the letter D twice. You would not call it D natural and D sharp. You would call it C, D, E flat. So those note aspects, it can get convoluted and it can get very stressful. But every other instrument worries about this a little bit more than we do. We just have to know our starting notes, if you will, and then apply the shape for the sound. And if we know the numbers, we don't really even have to learn the notes. But learning the notes does matter because it will give you a holistic approach of understanding everything. So hopefully that was not overbearing. Rewatch this video if it was, that way you can learn more and more about these as it goes along. I will catch you in the next video. Bam. Oh, okay, check me out, y'all. The bell is gonna ring in 1 minute. So I'm pretty much gonna conclude my live stream. I appreciate those who have been watching. Consistently, I've only had 1 viewer. But in totality, I've had about 90 views. So all of these videos, KL, Carrie, right? Good to see you. Consistently, I've been doing this every single day from about 10:30 to, yeah, Carrie, 10:30 to 11:35-ish, because around 11:36 my students like to enter the room. That's the bell to let them into the room. So I will catch you the next weekday as we do this. The next weekday that we do this is going to be Monday. Be sure to have your questions. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email will be dropped in the caption or in the chat box, but it is contact at the name of this channel, contact at paulnealmusic.com. I rock with you too, man. If you got any questions, feel free to email me. If there's ever any song suggestions or anything that you want to learn or anything, feel free to email me. I'll make sure I'll make the content specifically for what you want to learn. If not, I'll catch you in the next live stream, or I'll see y'all tonight when I am street performing with my band. So, peace out, Girl Scouts. Hold it down, Cub Scouts.